Going on. Hello, YouTube. It's very dark on YouTube.
Gosh, what's going on there?
They're trying it. That's what.
I think they're funny, and we've got plenty of light in here. Really.
Yeah. It's not even dark
Oh,
like
that's
it's
right.
been.
It's a bit better now, so and they're still reducing it.
Yeah. They're taking. Yeah, and that's it. That'll do. Facebook.
Hello, Facebook.
Right. Hello,
What's
people.
saying? We here.
I think maybe one of them might be dead or something. Ah, that would make sense.
Oh, lovely.
Hmm?
My phone acting like it doesn't want to connect. Come on.
Mine's acting like it can't update to tell me that you're live. Yeah, right.
We'll be with you, folks. Just sorting out the technical issues. Wi-Fi issue, isn't it? Yeah, look, mine's the same.
It's not working either. Yeah. What the heck? Why would you need that if you're bathing every day properly? I'm gonna put-
Yeah, look at that. Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, it's not coming up.
So
Okay.
then I'm wondering if we
If
actually
we
are
actually
live
are
to
live.
anybody.
Well, let's go into your thing. No, it's not on your
Not on
on
there.
your thing.
No, because that's what I'm saying. I'm on my
Yeah.
own thing. I can't access anything there.
And it's not actually saying
It
the
says
amount
live
of time.
times.
Yeah, it's not
the minutes.
No.
Let's kill it and
kill it and start again. Yeah, because it's trying the thing. Sorry, YouTube. I don't know. You know, Facebook. They try us every week. It's
Every
nothing.
week.
It's- Why we like that? Everyone that. What title? It is. What was the real intention
Oh yeah.
of the founding fathers of the USA? As I said before, boozing. Well, one of the reasons anyway. Yeah, that's part of the reason.
They're gonna like England.
Mm.
And they're still not English.
That's the
That's
thing.
the joke.
They're still English.
Bam, let's try again. Right, yeah, because you
Yeah,
see
see,
now it's
now it's
giving us
giving
the
the
timing now.
Yeah.
Well, it did.
Trying
It's
that thing.
disappeared, but
Yeah, it's there now.
Yeah, it's just come up.
okay, here we go. That's it.
Let's bring that down. So I already know.
So yeah, now we know.
Yeah, see, it always does it.
Well, I need my notes.
Yeah.
They don't tell me that they didn't.
Oh, you know they like to try and delete them off too.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. A subject which might be boring to some, but that's okay. We don't care anymore. We just do what we feel like. And anybody else who wants to do a lot more interesting live, crack on.
Yeah.
We
I'd
can
happily
we
watch.
can join yours if you like,
Actually.
or we can work with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you and that also means if you come up with a topic that you think we should be covering, or a topic that we covered that you think we didn't cover in enough detail,
Yeah.
yeah, they'll get cut.
Already.
And I know it will affect me when I keep to take the glasses on and off.
Yeah.
So,
It's
but
just-
yeah, if people think that there's some topic that we didn't cover enough on, or if there's some topic that's burning a hole in their head and they want us to talk about it, well, we can happily do so. But yeah, what I mean, as for the USA, we're probably going to have another topic because I probably would put another topic why I don't like the USA.
Well,
And that might go on for hours.
that can be part
in
20.
in fact, I'm telling you, I think maybe we might just do one of those as well. Why I don't like the USA.
Why not like the US and all the reasons. Oh,
You know,
God,
and
that
there's so
is a
many.
whole-
The CIA, the FBI,
Don't even get me started
you
on
know,
the CIA. and their
Homeland
criminal
Security.
self. And the thing is, right, is they tell you what they're doing. There's many of shows.
They show you what they
showing
do and how
there's
they
even one
behave.
about the Homeland Security
Yeah, but
called
that's why
Homeland.
they put them on the TV. To
They show you.
desensitize
Yeah,
So
because
that
then
was
when it
Just a
comes out,
program, it's
That's
not
right.
real.
When they do the things they do, then you're like,
Yeah.
nah, it
well, we
wasn't
knew
like that.
anyway because
Yeah.
you know we already saw it, so people are not bothered,
Yeah.
then, are they?
They're desensitized.
Exactly. So the only thing I am going to say in sort of what do you want to call it, introduction, if you like,
Mm.
is that we are talking about the USA. At least today, we're going to talk more about the foundations anyway. And as anybody knows, foundations matter. So this country, which is purported to be the greatest country in the world,
Yeah,
purported to be the richest country in the world, which it isn't anyway,
no, it's
by them
not
anymore.
actually.
It's
Not been for a long time.
And I mean, maybe we'll talk about some of those things next time or another time as to why it's not the richest country in the world. But that was their intention from day one, to be the richest, to be the number one, to be the top. And Americans, on the whole, behave as though they think that they still are.
Yeah.
You know, the number one in everything, financially, militarily, you know, and every other way.
Even education,
Education and so forth. You know, they act as if USA education is the best. Now, the fact is that it's a country of opportunity in comparison to some,
Of course, yeah.
which we don't doubt for 1 minute. And you know, like I said, maybe in another program we'll talk about that perspective. But in terms of the USA and how it has become what it is, or what laid the foundation, because the thing is that it's good to talk about the foundation because that's what they still refer to even until today. You know, the US Constitution and so forth and so forth. They refer to it even until today. So it shows that the foundation matters and that the foundation of that country in particular has made it what it is. And I believe that it's one of the most wicked countries on the face of this earth.
Yeah.
Irrespective, I have family living in the USA until today,
Demonic.
but it is an evil country.
Yes, it is.
Very, very wicked government and system.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
Look at all the natural disasters.
Yeah.
People think that that's just a coincidence. No,
No.
it's not.
no.
Yeah.
So we'll see how much of that we might cover in
Delve
this
into.
one, because some of it is not foundational anymore. It's current, but it all comes from the foundation.
Yeah.
And yes, we live in a country which is not really that far behind in how they behave,
No, they're not.
because they are the parents of the USA. The United Kingdom of Great Britain is the parent of the USA.
Yep.
So let's begin at the beginning, so to speak, and just point out for those people who slept during their history classes or just didn't do it at all. The United States of America started off as British controlled territory.
Yeah.
It was owned by the British.
Yes.
According to them,
States and colonies.
they discovered it.
Yep.
It was discovered and called the New World.
Yeah. It
You know,
was.
which was at that time would have
That's
been
why
America,
New York
and then you had
Mhm.
you had these other places which were classified as the New World, which would be the South America,
yeah.
Central America. So all of that was under that umbrella. But for the British part that they owned, as they would put it, it was what's now the USA,
Mhm.
which at the time when they decided to rebel and take themselves away from British government and control, there were 13 colonies, which were all British.
Yeah.
So I've got a little bit of information about that to share because this is the foundation, this is the real reason. Now, you know, the thing is that when we look now, we see they're prosecuting people for crimes and for things that they did many years ago. People are coming forward and saying, "Oh, when I was a child, so and so did this to me," you know, and things like that. And they're going back into the history of people, catching them, and where they can, prosecuting them. And now I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that. My point is that if you do it for someone, you know, who's in the regular public view, Mr. Joe Soap on the road, so to speak, or some of the public celebrities and so forth, then you should also look at governments
Yeah, right then.
and governmental structures.
Yeah.
And maybe you should start doing the same thing for some of them.
Yeah.
Because the USA put themselves forward as the police of the world. But their foundation is very hypocritical. Their foundation is evil.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why we're even talking about it. And again, like I said, maybe some people will be like, that's not an interesting topic. I don't care.
Good for you.
It's interesting to me, and I do my lives to satisfy me as well.
But these are people who don't care about history.
So, you know,
Or
I
anything.
love history.
They don't understand that history is actually very important and what it means, because it shows you why things are the way they are.
That's right. So they were a British rule. So at the time when they decided they've had enough of the British, King George III was the king of Britain. King George III is the one who they said was a madman, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was mad. He was like, clearly in those times he had like obviously schizophrenia or something.
They didn't know what
they
it
would
was
call
then,
it,
so they
yeah.
didn't have a name for it.
Yeah, so he was just a mad
madman
king.
idiot.
Yeah, because he'd be there. Oh, you know,
Because I think there's even
1
been
minute.
what was it, the madness of King George.
But it's even in that
That was a
show
film,
about
wasn't it?
Mary Queen. of
1994
Yeah.
film, The Madness of King George, and that talked about he was mentally unstable
Yeah.
during times of political upheaval.
Because I think the stress of the whole thing was what caused him to have his mental breakdowns. You know, he couldn't handle it, obviously.
That's a lot of pressure, though, isn't it?
Of course. Of course, it is a lot of pressure.
So let me just give you a little background about that.
Like King George.
They say King George III had erratic behaviour, they call it.
See, told you.
And he's known in history as the Mad King who lost America. So they've said that they put it down to physical genetic blood disorder called porphyria. So he had symptoms include aches and pains as well as blue urine.
Ooh, that's serious, you know. So where's that condition now?
But this is just them and their.
You must have been there for them.
But they say that he definitely had mental illness.
Yeah, some sort of schizoaffective disorder.
That they think it was bipolar. So you know, which makes
yeah, that makes sense.
And in their ancient terms of time when they spoke of his incessant loquacity, meaning you know him chat too much, and his habit of talking until the foam ran out of his mouth. He suffered from convulsions, and his pages had to sit on him to keep him safe on the floor. So.
Fits, mate.
But then they say there's where the blue urine came from. This is another theory that he was given medicine based on this deep blue flower
Mm.
called gentian or something, which may turn the urine blue.
Well, that's why he
Mm.
had blue urine then. That's
Mm.
quite obvious.
Yeah.
So he withdrew from public eye.
Mm.
He was secluded in Kew Palace near Richmond. And his son, the Prince of Wales, and he had a terrible relationship because, of course, the Prince of Wales had to be the regent.
Mm.
Mm.
So
And also, you
can't
can't have a relationship with somebody who's not mentally well.
Mm.
Very straining, isn't it?
Yeah. Especially that particular condition because it's two different people.
and they actually, at the time when he became ill, I mean, and again, I'm just reading what they have put in their history.
Mm.
They were advocating that they needed him for Parliament because he was a calming effect on the Parliament, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, and this
and all
is
of
the
this.
stress.
Right? But albeit that all of that is true and that's all very nice, but we don't care.
No.
And the reason why I'm saying we don't care is because they were galloping along through the slave trade,
Mm.
you see, and people need to understand that there's a reasoning behind why, the USA became the USA. Was it because they were such because you see, when you read what's written of what they're declaring and what they're saying, it sounds like such nice words. Yes, we're freedom
all.
for all and equality, and this is what we're founded on. No. Those were
Nothing of the
lies.
sort.
Yeah.
Those were
Freedom
lies.
for who they want.
And we're going to show that. So let me just read the beginning reason why they decided they don't want anything to do with the United Kingdom of Great Britain. And then Tamar's got notes, so we'll see what her notes are, and I've got more.
Mm-hmm.
So here's and this again is for those who would have done the history, you would know about this. They called it the Intolerable Acts, and there were 4. And this is stuff which they labelled on King George. But now, considering that King George III was probably up and down with mania at times, this may not well have been him anyway. The other politicians. However, my point is that we don't care whichever way, because
that's why they
all
wanted
of them,
to keep him. Let's be real. That makes sense to me now. We need him. No, you need him so that you can make your own choices. Yeah, manipulate.
Because his son, who obviously then eventually became King George IV, they tried to block him.
Yeah, you see.
Right? Politically, they were blocking him from doing his job as the regent. And it's quite obvious why, because he wasn't suffering from bipolar disorder.
Yeah,
like his
so
father.
they couldn't control him.
But my main point is that, the USA, the 13 colonies of the New World, as it was up to that point before the revolution, they were founded on slavery.
Yeah.
They've gone there and discovered a country full of people and said they discovered it. Sorry, not even a country, a continent.
Yeah.
Full of people and said they discovered it. That's the first dirty lie.
Absolutely disgusting.
Right. Then it has become British territory. So they've taken over, they've become the rulers, etc., etc. They initially used Indians to be farming tobacco and so forth. Cotton initially wasn't such a big crop for them. Then the Indians physically were not as strong, so then they brought Africans and other blacks from Caribbean and so forth, and other people of color, stronger ones, because basically they just wanted stronger and longer labor.
Yeah.
And that's where it came from. And funny enough, the first so-called slaves to land in the USA, where they say slavery then first began in Jamestown, which is I think 1738, I believe. Because me, I like my history, so and they landed in Jamestown, Virginia, which was where they were farming tobacco.
Yeah.
They were having a lot of problem with the Indians. In fact, the Indians the Indians made them walk.
Listen,
They weren't joking with them.
no, they weren't. They were poisoning them and everything,
Yeah.
mate. Killing them off.
And they brought in, and these people, the first ones that came there, they actually weren't slaves
No, they weren't.
in terms of, you know, the real definition of the word slave. Because at that time, slavery in the 13 colonies officially didn't exist as such, at least not in the style that it came to straight after that. And it was the English that were pushing slaves, and they ended up going. They took in these Africans who were what's the word? They were under I think it's called indentured servitude, which is to me is just another word for slavery, but it just had slightly different options for the person.
Yeah.
As in, you were not necessarily exactly owned, but you know, you needed to do work
to
because
pay back whatever.
So it was, you know, it was a difficult situation. But you see, the point I'm making is that the people who were in charge were British. The governors of the states were British. The leaders were British. But now, because they're so far from the actual United Kingdom, they you know, they had this power struggle.
Yeah.
And why did they have the power struggle? Because the British Parliament wanted money, of course.
They didn't want to pay it
from the 13 colonies, and they didn't want to pay it. They knew as a land mass, it was far bigger than Britain. But Britain was very powerful because of their naval power.
Yeah.
You know, and so and their military might, at least generally speaking, but on more so on sea than land, which is where you get that nasty, horrible song "Rule Britannia" from.
They had the ships and the what do you call them? Cannonballs.
That's right.
Was their obsession.
Yeah, blowing everybody up from the ship.
Yep.
You know, so this is what those four acts which made up the Intolerable Acts were. And there was the coercive acts, which were called the Intolerable Acts by the American colonists. That is, in other words, the British.
Yeah.
Were passed by Parliament in 1774 in response to colonial resistance to British rule. Right? So, and remember, these are all the same people.
Yeah.
This is like cousins fighting each other.
Yeah, basically. You know? They want to take ownership.
That's right. The four acts were, number one, the Boston Port Bill, which closed Boston Harbor. And again, that was all to do with them being able to ship things in and out and do what they think and feel like. That Angel, yes. Hi, Angel.
Hello.
The Massachusetts Act, which replaced the elective local government with an appointive one and increased the powers of the military governor. And the military governors at that time were British. Number three, the Administration of Justice Act, which allowed British officials charged with capital offences to be tried in another colony or in England. In other words, so basically they would get away with it. So the Americans didn't like that because at that time, the British officials did not see themselves as Americans. They were British. They were living in America, but they're British because America at that time also, according to them, was British.
Yeah.
So that was the way it went. But yeah, is the interesting thing just for people to know, as a matter of interest, it didn't work the same way the other way around. That's the interesting thing about Britain, and that's why. And you know, this is why I said foundations are important for people to understand. Because people are asking the question until today. I think I put, I don't think, I know. I put a post on my Facebook page, I think it was maybe last week, of a British actor, British born to Jamaican parents, who is being threatened with deportation to Jamaica because he was born at the time when his parents did not have so-called British citizenship. But he was born here in Britain and he doesn't have any passport, which is also, you know, and I mean,
if he was born here, why does he need a passport?
well,
He chooses he's not going nowhere.
but now he wants to, and they're not giving him. So this is where the issue is, that he hasn't been given neither a Jamaican nor Jamaica will give him.
They will give
But
him,
the problem with him having a Jamaican passport is that then
he'll never get the
that he's never going to get the British one, and it's going to give him issues in terms of staying here and also traveling. And he works here as an actor. He's you know, a stuntman and stuff in films and so forth. And he's been in, you know, he's even in quite sort of
quite big
films.
Yeah.
And still
they can't.
They're treating him
for your film.
They're treating him like a second class citizen, so to speak. Now, what they've done, they've turned around and said, well, because, you know, they don't care that he was born there. He's not British.
But
he was born in Britain, but his mother was not a British citizen, blah, 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 blah. So this is somebody who's worked. Okay, he's a young man, so he's not old. But this is somebody who has worked in the UK, paid taxes and so forth to the country. And okay, he did make a mistake. In his younger years, he committed a crime and he was jailed for it. And they're trying to use that as their reasoning to punish him and send him to Jamaica, which he knows nothing about.
So why didn't you send him then?
You know, and now I'm not saying that people shouldn't be punished and go to jail for their crimes, of course, because he did. But the issue now is that that's over and done with.
Yeah,
he's turned over an absolutely different leaf in life till he has become a role model. He has worked even with the police to divert other young people of color from crime, from knife crime and so on and so forth. But the only one thing that is the issue, and this is what I'm saying, that people have got to understand the reality. It is a color prejudice issue.
Yeah,
they don't like the color of his skin and how he looks, and they're penalized. Oh, you're a Jamaican. He's not in that sense. But now, yes, he is a Jamaican because his heritage and his culture and so forth is a Jamaican, but he was born here. So therefore, on the basis of that, it should mean that he would have the right, to be a British citizen. But that's why I'm saying what I'm saying, that foundations are very important, because from way back in slavery, they blocked this on purpose, and this country, because this is what I'm saying, the foundations is something that's deeper than what people often understand. They just say, oh, it's just something that's written into law and it's then written on a bit of paper. No, sometimes it's deeper than that. It has a much more deeper spiritual connotation even. And years ago, during the time of slavery, as you quite know, the slave masters in particular, the men and their sons, were going around impregnating every female slave that they could. Now, many of those people, the slave master, their sons, and the overseers were all British, right? Because I mean, obviously, even in the colonies initially, and also continuously in the Caribbean and other parts of like South America and so forth, they were British. So now, this is the reason why they said that it will not apply, because they said now these slaves who are the bloodline of this British slave owner would have then been able to jump on a ship, come to Britain and say, I'm home. Because my daddy is British, I'm British.
Yeah.
And so from those times, they blocked it, and that's why it's still like that.
Yeah.
They've made that difficult because of these reasons.
Be able to claim that as part of their identity.
So they've made it very, very difficult. And then what they did to solidify the whole issue was that they said that now every child that's born, this is for the slavery part, every slave child which is born takes on the nationality of the mother.
Mm,
And of course, the nationality of a slave is a slave.
yeah.
They,
So
they,
they
didn't, they
automatically
didn't, they
become a
didn't count
slave.
any country that they belonged to. They belonged to their master.
Yeah.
So you're born to a female slave, then you're a slave.
Yeah. And that's
You
why
see?
they started breeding them.
That's right. And this is the mentality, even until 2021, why this man who is an actor, acting in British movies and other movies, acting on British TV, but because his skin color is like mine, he's a slave. in
Telling
their
him he's
mind,
not
isn't it?
British.
Yeah. You're
So,
originally
so they're
a slave, so you
threatening
could
to,
have never come from here.
deport him to Jamaica.
And it's like, how can you be trying to say you're deporting somebody that was born here?
Mhm.
How does that even make sense?
And didn't grow up in Jamaica. He grew up here.
Yeah. But I told you already about that person that I know and his children, they can't get a British passport either because he wasn't born here and the mother wasn't born here, even though the children were born here and are going to school here and
Yeah,
everything.
this is what I'm talking about. Because it's all prejudice, and it's
Yeah.
the British that started this.
Yeah.
We'll, later on we're going to do some stuff about
Britain.
I mean, we've talked about Britain before, but at least when we spoke about the royal family.
Yeah.
But if we begin to talk about the legacy of evil
going on in Britain.
that Britain that's going on, all that's been deposited around the world.
Yeah, because they've actually spread
historically,
evil everywhere. They're not even joking.
So the number 4 was the Quartering Act, which permitted the requisition of unoccupied buildings to give them to British troops. So basically, they were really being out of order. So I can understand, and the Americans said, "No, we're not having it."
Like we're over here nearly getting killed off by the Indians, and you lot are just trying to get the money. Nah. Then that's what happened. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He thought my friend just died last week.
Yeah, because they were having a hard time.
Yeah.
I mean,
because they were fighting them. It was like a war, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Especially at the beginning. It was actually a war.
Yeah. And it would be because you've come and you're telling people, give me that land.
Me your land.
And they're saying, no, you go back where you're coming from.
Yeah.
No, we'll kill you.
Saying,
you kill us, we'll kill you.
Yeah. And that's exactly what's happened.
So I mean, but it's the British. They put their fingers in a lot of places where they should have been chopped off.
You already know.
And now, they said there were, I think it was 8 people who they classified as the founding fathers of the USA.
I've got some information on them founding fathers.
And we'll talk about them. I would like. I mean, I don't know what Tamar's got. She can go first with some of that. Yeah. I would like to talk about the first president, George Washington. So leave that one for me.
So leave George Washington out.
Okay. But yes, you need to hear this information. Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got a few. I've got like about 6 or 7 of them on here.
Well, that's fine. Any of them.
Founding fathers. So I'll leave out George Washington, as Dad said.
Have you got anything on Benjamin Franklin?
I haven't actually got it written down in my notes, but I don't need to because I already remember from what I watched this documentary. So,
who wrote the Declaration?
Oh yeah,
Jefferson.
Jefferson.
Jefferson. I've got information on here.
I don't know if I do have information on Jefferson.
Yeah, I have.
I'll leave. I've got a little bit, but I'll leave that out.
I've got a racist quote by him, and then I've got information about the actual Declaration of Independence.
Okay. I'll leave Jefferson out mostly then.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the second president of the United States, which is John Adams.
John Adams.
He wrote the oldest constitution, which is still in use today. He was a founding father and the first president to live in the White House.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but he was also a borderline dictator.
Oh, yes.
He didn't take any criticism and despised those who voiced it. So when Congressman Matthew Lyon, wrote that Adams was This is what Matthew Lyon wrote about John Adams. Said that he was swallowed up in a continual grasp for power, in an unbound thirst for ridiculous pomp, foolish adulation, and selfish avarice. He found himself in trouble, right? So that means that you already know what that means. My mum was trying to get him cancelled off. Yeah, nobody liked this John Adams. Yeah, but he has obviously clearly pushed himself into the position. Yeah, or said, "Oh well, I have the right, to be the second president," which is probably what was going on because he's so obsessed with power. So because of Matthew Lyons making that statement in 1798, John Adams signed the Alien and Sedition Acts, which made it illegal to write, print, utter, or publish any false, scandalous, or malicious writing against any president or other officials of the executive branch. And that's still in place today, as we already know. Oh yeah, sorry. No, it was only in place until Trump came along. Then suddenly no one cared about that them rules anymore.
And then it popped back for this little.
Yeah, and then now it's back again for Joe Biden. Now you're not allowed to say anything again. So, who have I got next? John Hancock. John Hancock could well be seen as an American anti-hero who outwitted and bit his thumb at British authority. After all, he was a wealthy shipping magnate who was so good at smuggling that he became known as the Prince of Smugglers. He afforded his lavish lifestyle, which he was often criticized for, by smuggling Dutch tea into Boston aboard his ship, which was called the Liberty. Yeah, and when he was caught, he had the means to afford a promising defense, meaning he was paying them off. Yeah, he corralled unwitting citizens to protest British tax laws that hampered his business and funded the demonstrations himself. Well, much like today, isn't it? With Black Lives Matter, and who's funding those protests against things going on. So it says here, Hancock helped instigate and foment violence on the streets for his own gain. Around the same time, the founding father entered local politics in 1765. British Parliament started imposing numerous tax regulations on the 13 colonies. Anti-British sentiment grew stronger every year, and Hancock found a way to capitalize on that. When his ship was impounded by British authorities in 1768, Hancock was charged with violating tax laws, fined heavily, and taken to court. But since Hancock had become quite the public figure in Boston, the seizure of his ship led to violence on the streets, all in the name of liberty.
That's the Boston Tea Party.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. So he was why was he doing that? For his own personal gain. He didn't care about any liberty for anybody. He just cared that he could get back on his ship to get smuggling. Yeah, his tea over. Right. So should I? Oh yeah, you said I should leave Jefferson. So I've got quite a lot. Didn't even realize. You know why? Because it was too much. Too much going on with Jefferson. That's why. So the next person I've got. Let me see. There was a man called Patrick Henry, which on the eve of the American Revolution famously exclaimed, "Give me liberty or give me death." But what most people aren't aware of is that this founding father didn't afford his wife the same freedom and kept her locked up in the cellar. Henry's wife Sarah began to mentally decline around 1771 following the birth of their last child, Edward. At first she appeared to be merely emotionally unsettled, but then began to act out violently. Henry's mother wrote, "We feel Sarah is losing her mind after the birth of little Neddy, and it says that apparently he kept her in the cellar or wherever. Yeah, he locked her up and kept her in the cellar because at the time there was a law for people that were mentally unwell, and they wanted to send them off, obviously, to the mental institutions that were just starting up then. But they were very violent and abusive in these mental institutions. So, of course, he didn't want his wife to go to these mental institutions, so he kept her locked up in the cellar. But, you know, it's still not right, is it? It's still not
the
good.
way to do it.
No,
Yeah.
it's not the way to do it. So the next person that I'll speak about is Benjamin Franklin, which, oh boy, Benjamin Franklin one is actually quite scary. Yeah, because this man, they say he was one of the greatest minds of the American Revolution, even though he didn't even make it out of primary school. So it's like, well, where was he getting his information and his brains from? They said it wasn't his fault though, because it's clear that his mind was made for his mind was more than up to task for. Basically, they're saying his mind wasn't for school. It wasn't for doing times tables, and
It was beyond that.
yeah, it was beyond that, which is why he didn't do well in school, right? But whether that was the case or not, who knows? Yeah. What happened with this man is that he became some sort of masochist, he was a masochist, murderer, clearly a devil worshipper, secretly. Yeah, because what they found was he was part of this secret society, which was called, what was it called now? Let me see if I can find it. It was called something like the Devil's Group, or I can't even remember the name of it now. But it was a group that he was part of, and basically they were known as some sort of, what would you class it as? Like a, like some sort of sexual group. That's what they classed them as. Oh, they're like a sexual liberty group. And he used to attend them. They were called something like the Devil's Children, or something evil. It had an evil name like that, like the Devil's Children or something like that. And it was known that they used to do a lot of sexual deprivation things, acts, sexual deprivation acts. They also used to be doing some sort of rituals. But of course, they didn't give too much information about the rituals, because, they never do. So, yeah, he used to do rituals, and he was becoming part of this group. And this was all, of course, undercover, because nobody was allowed to know about him being part of this group. But the longer that he stayed in this group, the more, of course, it affected him, and he became more and more, sadistic and dark, I'm guessing. And eventually, when he died, because they found out about this group that they used to do their rituals in a cave. And when they found out about this group and they searched the cave, they found a load of bones in the caves, right? So because of that, they said, oh, well, we want to search where Benjamin Franklin lived, in London. So they only got to search some 13 square meters or something, some small space only they could search. And in that small space of land behind his house in the garden, they found 1,200 bone piece fragments and pieces.
Listen to that.
1,200. And that was a very small section of the garden. They actually couldn't get the authority to be able to search the full garden. They could only search that small space. And in that small space, 1,200 bone fragments
Disgusting.
and pieces, and all in the same. They dated them back to the period, and the only person living there then was Benjamin Franklin. Yeah, they've even the people said they even double checked to make sure that the bones were not like mixed in with old ones, or like somebody hadn't digged them and put them there or anything like that. No, they checked everything, and all that it came was that Benjamin Franklin is a murderer
That's right.
who was clearly doing rituals.
Of course.
Yeah, to kill people for his power. Yeah, that's what clearly that little group was all about. Yeah, sacrificial. They were doing obviously clearly what's it called? Satanic ritual abuse. That's quite obvious. Yeah, that's why all the sexual deprivation and all that, and then satanic ritual killings to gain the bones and the power. That's where the bones have come from, for the power and all that stuff. And they said that they also found skulls and things in different places in his house. I think it was, they found skulls skulls and different things all around that. And the thing is, right, this information is not very hard to find. When you look for it, right, this information is not very hard to find. But do you think that they're telling anybody this information?
Of course not.
No, they don't want anybody to know. They don't want no one to know, right? Let me see. Where is it now? Where is it? There's a because they said he had a bad relationship with his wife. That was it. And I think that he had a bad relationship with his wife, Deborah Reed, her name was, because she was discarded by him. That's what it says. It's bad enough that she's been largely ignored by history. Worse yet, she was often discarded by her own husband. Deborah was from a Philadelphia family who happened to give lodging to a 17-year-old Benjamin Franklin. Sparks started to fly between the two, but Deborah's family was skeptical about the scruffy runaway. See, so this is the thing, right? This man was a runaway from wherever his original place was, if I can even find that information, because it's probably on here as well. Yep, Benjamin Franklin was a teenage runaway. It's clear that Benjamin Franklin and his older brother James had a difficult relationship. According to sources, James could be downright abusive, berating and beating his younger brother. So this is all the things that Benjamin Franklin was going through. Right, and this wasn't necessarily out of the ordinary. Who for indentured apprentices, meaning Benjamin, who could be forced to endure rough conditions in the hopes of a good career. James proposed a new term of servitude that would be kept secret. This struck Ben as odd and exploitative, but as he wrote in his own letters, he signed anyway. He later argued for his own freedom, claiming resentment for the blows his passion too often urged him to bestow upon me. That's serious. James resisted. So then that's at 17, that's when he ran away. So you can imagine, right? If he's obviously got this brother who is clearly demonized as well, they obviously come from some line of, it must be some Nephilim business going on there. And that's why all these types of behaviors are running their course through the bloodline.
Of course.
Yeah, so he's ran away from his brother. Why? Because his brother must have clearly been abusing him. Who knows what kind of abuse, but it's obviously to extreme levels, with the fact that he's making him sign a secret pact to not be able to speak about the beatings and the abuse and all this stuff. And this would have affected Benjamin and his mind. And when he's ran away now, that's all he knows, isn't it? When he's ran away and got his new wife
Mm.
and all the rest, he's probably thought, well, how did my brother get to the, how did my brother get to the level that he did?
That he did. What
Yeah,
did he do?
what did he do? He
That's
was
right.
he was beating people, he was abusing, he was
Doing
killing.
some
Nasty business,
rubbish.
yeah.
Mm.
Then Benjamin thought, well, I have no choice but to do the same,
Mhm.
and that's why he did what he did. It's quite obvious, and that's it really. What I've got on Benjamin Franklin. There is a bit more, but I feel it's a bit
What?
nice. It's a bit off the topic
Oh, okay.
Not
because that's
really
more just
necessary.
like trivia about it.
Mm.
You know what I
Mm.
mean? And people suspected he was a British spy at first, actually. Probably because he ran away from his brother.
Mm.
Maybe that it stemmed from there. Because they thought, oh well, he's ran away from his normal rights, his duties. And now he's coming back, he must be a spy. Because you know how those people think. Same like if your dad was CIA and you ran away and didn't want to be CIA, and then you came back a year later saying you want to be CIA. They're not hearing what you.
They're going to wonder why.
Yeah, straight away.
Who are you and what have you been up to?
Yes. Who have you been speaking to? Who have you seen?
Mhm.
Who has sent you back? Why are you coming back? Yeah, so that's why at first Benjamin was seen as a spy, because clearly he ran away from his duty, as we know. Because like his brother said, he had to endure those things to get a good career. Yeah, he has to endure abuse and you see, that's how you know he came from some Nephilim bloodline. Because that is not
Some
normal.
wicked
Not
people.
normal.
Yeah. To say, oh, you must endure this if you have any hopes of getting a good career. That doesn't make any sense to me.
It's wickedness.
Yeah, it is wickedness. Let's see.
Mm.
Benjamin Franklin was a member of the Hellfire Club.
That's
Hellfire
it.
Club.
Hellfire. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Hellfire Club, you
Yeah,
know.
the Hellfire Club. That's it.
Mm.
Couldn't remember it myself.
No.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the name, but I knew it was something
Yeah.
demonic.
Hellfire.
Hellfire Club, you know. And that's what they were on.
Mm.
Rituals and all that rubbish in the caves.
Rituals,
Yeah, rituals.
sacrifices,
Yeah,
pure efforts.
yeah. All kinds of nastiness. This is what they were on. Yeah, up in the. Let me just see now if I can just find. Let's see what comes up.
What did you type in? Hellfire.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Ben Franklin, the Hellfire Club, and his view of Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah. Go on.
It says he was one of the most influential founding fathers, as we all know. That's why he's on the $100 bill. And the only one of them to have signed all of the original founding documents. Declaration of Independence, Treaty of Paris, and the US Constitution.
Mm.
It says he was responsible for 3 important phases of America's development: unifying the colonists in their rebellion against England, philosophy concerning the rights of mankind, and facilitating the American Revolution by publishing the writings of Thomas Paine. So,
Israel put a comment.
what's he said?
They would perform satanic rituals, often involving sex, and
Yeah.
they would mock the sacred rites of Christianity.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's him, and that's
That was the whole aim of what they were
and
doing.
he's classified as one of the most influential of the founding fathers of the USA.
Yeah.
That's their foundation,
Yes, nastiness.
and it's still the foundation of the political elite.
Yeah, that's why they put them people in there.
Yeah, who are just on a Baphomet agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, Daniel.
So there's a little
Excuse me.
says here a letter says that Benjamin Franklin wrote many letters, which everybody knows. And he's often quoted for his certain eloquence concerning words that sound faithful, Most are unaware that he was a shameless and apparently unrepentant adulterer, which obviously we know
Well,
because
of course he would.
that's
because
why he's going to Hellfire
he
Club.
was a sexual
Yeah.
profligate.
Yes. So he wrote many letters to a married young Frenchwoman. Oh, yes, I remember this, Madame Brion. Yeah.
Yes.
And he says,
Everybody who's into history, they know them too.
yeah.
Madame Brion.
Yeah. It says a letter dated March 10th, 1778. And this is when Benjamin Franklin was 72 years old. Right? And still, he can't rest. And it was in response to one letter that Mrs. Brion had written to him. In it, she mentions that he is guilty of the sin of lust towards her, saying, "What is so damnable about that?" Then she says that she herself absolves him of all his sins. He responded by writing this. And I'm just gonna, paraphrase it. Yeah, I'm just gonna skim. I lay hold of your promise to absolve me of all sins, past, present, and future, on the easy, pleasing condition of loving God, America, and my guide above all things. People commonly speak of 10 commandments. I have been taught that there are 12. The first was increase and multiply and replenish the earth. The 12th is a new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another. I never made any difficulty about that, but was always willing to obey them both. Pray tell me, my dear, whether my keeping religiously these 2 commandments may not be accepted in compensation for my breaking so often of the 10. I mean that which forbids me conveying my neighbor's wife, and which I confess I break constantly. God forgive me, as often I see or think of my lovely confessor, and I am afraid I should never be able to repent of the sin, even if I had the full possession of her. So what does that tell you? He himself knows that his sin is so intense that he feels he couldn't even repent for it. It wouldn't even be enough.
So there's more to it than what history is actually.
Yeah, of course, because what sin could it, because many people are many people may be adulterers, etc., but they don't go to these levels of, oh, I can never be, I can never be,
repent.
I can't repent. And him talking about trying to justify his behavior with those 2 commandments about, oh, I've got a next commandment, love one another. Okay,
That's not what
you can love one another, of course, but there's loving one another, and then there's doing too much. And he was doing too much all the time. Yeah, in the Hellfire Club, every week.
That's right.
Down the road, when his poor wife sat at home, not even knowing what's going on, or better yet, she probably did and couldn't do anything about it because he'd probably be boxing her down more time secretly in the yard. Yeah, so it says here, this is like a little Franklin and the Hellfire Club. So this is like a little what's it called? Like a little short little thing about the secret societies and etc. what he was into. So it says Benjamin Franklin was, without question, deeply involved in Freemasonry and other secret societies. Franklin belonged to secret groups in the 3 countries involved in the War of Independence, America, France, and England. He was master of the Masonic Lodge of Philadelphia, while over in France, he was master of the 9 Sisters Lodge, from which sprang the French Revolution. In England, he joined a rakish political group founded by Sir Francis Dashwood, Member of Parliament, advisor to King George III. Are you hearing this? Do you remember what was said at the beginning?
The Mad King.
Mad King George.
I've been advised by this one.
By this
man
this
who's in cahoots with
This was him.
Dirty Benjamin Franklin. Yeah.
Because nothing is coincidence.
No, it's not.
Yeah. and they were called the monks of Medmenham Abbey, otherwise known as Hellfire Club.
Hellfire Club.
Yeah.
Monks, you know.
And the 18th century is described as follows: an exclusive English club that met sporadically during the mid 18th century. Its purpose at best was to mock traditional religion and conduct orgies. At worst, it involved the indulgence of satanic rites and sacrifices.
They put orgies under at best.
Yeah, that's the at best. So that shows the depravity that they were conducting in there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So much,
You know.
much worse things were happening.
Yeah. And they put that at
Help us, Jesus.
isn't it?
And this man, they say that this Francis Dashwood was a friend of Franklin. Yeah, so they're not even calling him, oh, he was just someone in the club as well. No, he was the friend, right? And my man established the Hellfire Club. And this is the same man that was supposed to be the advisor for the Mad King George, for
Yeah.
King George III.
Well, there you go. Maybe it wasn't bipolar. Maybe
No.
it was this dude.
On whatever
Telling him this
satanic-
stupidness.
yeah, whatever he was doing there. Right. And the club, which consisted of the Superior Order of 12 members, allegedly took part in basic forms of satanic worship. It wasn't no basic. In addition to
But we don't
taking
care.
part.
Wait. Satanic worship is satanic worship.
Yeah, there's no basic.
There's nothing basic about it. It is satanic.
Mhm.
Right? Whichever level it is, I don't care if it's 11 or 11. Right? It's the same.
Level 1 or 11. But it's true. I don't know why they're trying that about how
Basic.
basic. Yeah. In addition to taking part in the occult orgies and parties with prostitutes were also said to be the norm. You know why? Because then it's easy for them. Oh, well, she's a prostitute.
Yeah,
We can
kill
just
her,
kill her. Yeah, she's no good to society anyway, because these are the ways that people use. And they still think now. Yeah, still till now. Because even, I know this doesn't really come into our topic right now, but that man, the one that killed all the why name? Yeah, the Ripper. Satanic ritual.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's what that was. It's nothing more to it. It's satanic rituals. And that's why it was specifically these prostitutes that they're killing. Yeah, it's not a coincidence. Do you know what I mean? So, oh yes, that was it. As well as the 1,500, 1,200 bones, sorry, there was also 10 bodies that were dug up from beneath Franklin's home
in that
in
same one little
London.
patch.
This was in 1998, and I'm guessing it was in that same patch, or maybe it doesn't say they got a different patch, so it must be in that same one. And it says the bodies were of 4 adults and 6 children. So he was killing children as well, just like they are today.
Yeah, for their blood.
Yeah, for their blood, of course, and for the spiritual power that you get from killing that innocent soul. Of course. Yeah. And it says most of the bones showed signs of having been dissected, sawn, or cut.
Yeah, trauma.
Yeah.
That's what they're looking for.
And the suggestion was put forth that the bodies were probably anatomical specimens, right? Because they tried to say that Benjamin Franklin had an interest in, you know, like not taxidermy, but like like, you know, the like medical science and trying to look into, you know, what's going on with the body and how to create medicines and etc. But listen,
all of that
is still the same thing. It's still witchcraft and it's still demonic behavior, because why do you need to be taking these bodies, bringing them in your yard, drilling them out, sawing them up, hacking them up, whatever you're doing? How is that in the name of medical science and to further medical science? That's not what you do. You don't do no secret hacking ups in your back garden. Yeah, if you're trying to further medical science. Yeah, so there's no excuses on my part. I'm sorry, but all these where they try to, sugarcoat it and make it look like, oh, yeah, it was a bit strange, but it wasn't for an evil reason. He was doing it for the good. No, there is no good. He was doing it for him and his 13 bloodline people's good. Yeah, sorry, 12 other bloodline people's good. Yeah. That's what he was doing it for, and that's why they had to drag him back to the club and make him be part of it, because at first he had run away and didn't want to do it, but it was his duty because he's part of the bloodline. And it's as simple as that. There's nothing more to it. About science, oh, it was for science. No. Yeah, I'm not hearing it. And see, those are just a few people. I know I've been on Benjamin for a while, but right then, where's his books of science?
Pieces?
And why they all hidden and buried outside? Yeah. No one knew he was doing any anatomical.
Because it wasn't. That's why.
Of course, he
that's
wasn't.
Why the bones are in pieces.
I know I've been riding on Benjamin for a while now, but that's because this is one of the people that nobody actually knows the truth about Benjamin Franklin. And people will say, oh yeah, Benjamin Franklin, yeah, he's on the $100 bill, blah, blah, blah. He's so great. He did this and that for our country. And
well, it's just
what
like
did he actually do?
Got that fat, dirty Winston Churchill on the £5 note, and no one cares about what he was doing either.
You see, it's the same time. And they've got him there looking round as a ball. Yeah, on that £5 note. Yeah. On the side there, sour face.
Yeah, always miserable and vexed up.
Yeah, he was. So the only ones I've left out, obviously, Dad will take up those founding fathers.
Okay, because we've gotten quite far with time. It's interesting, isn't it? Anyway, like I said, those who don't want to know and don't care, we know business.
You already know.
So I think I should talk about Thomas Jefferson first.
Yeah.
He's quoted as the one who drafted who presented the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
So I just want to read some quotes before I talk about him. This is a quote by Benjamin Franklin. He says, "Why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America, where we have so fair an opportunity by excluding all blacks and tawnies," meaning Indians, or increasing the lovely white and red? So very nice statement, that, isn't it? Thomas Jefferson's statement, and these are all verified and true. This is what they said. Thomas Jefferson, quote, "I advanced it therefore as a suspicion only that the blacks, whether originally a distinct race or made distinct by time or circumstance, are inferior to the whites in the endowments of both body and mind." Idiot.
Is it?
Abraham Lincoln said, quote, "There is a physical difference between the white and the black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races living together. While they do remain together, there must be the position of superior and inferior. And I, as much as any man, am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race." Right? These are the founding fathers of the USA. So this is the reason why the USA is the way it is and has been that way until now.
Yeah, such extreme racism.
Right? And the reason why the UK has a more subtle variance is because they've been sly from day one.
Yeah.
Everything they do is undercover. They don't, because you won't find quotes as easily as this.
No.
Because they won't say it in public. They'll say it behind closed doors.
Their mouth closed.
That's why they can say, oh, nobody in the British royal family is racist, and all of them, every last one of them, every last one of them.
Wait a
Princess
minute. When
Anne.
did we hear anything
Nah,
last about Princess Anne?
Anne,
She's over there minding her business.
she's doing her own thing.
Yeah,
The ones who are prominent and up front, they
Yeah.
are the
They
racists.
are the
Yeah.
ones, mate.
and that's why they're prominent out front.
Exactly.
And everybody else has been kicked to the back.
Yeah, because they're not agreeing with the
And
stupid.
that's why they're not bothered about Harry, because he wasn't
Yeah.
racist.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
So don't fool yourself.
You already know.
Okay, and the last quote from Henry Berry.
Oh,
We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which the light may enter the slave's mind. If we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete.
You see that?
They would then be on the level of the beast of the fields, and we should then be safe.
see,
These
that?
are the
They know the
foundation. These are the foundation of the USA. So when you even see how people of color in America kick up stink and behave the way they do, you have to understand even the reasoning,
Yeah,
because there is a spiritual atmosphere there that exists,
and they're aware of it.
and they know it,
Yeah,
and it's heavier than people can even comprehend.
yeah.
Right, because this is what they planned it to be.
Yeah.
You know, from the
From way
beginning
back then.
of the foundation of the country, this is what
Yeah.
they wanted.
And that's
What would
why
that
they're
have been,
talking. If
1600s,
we are to live
16th century
together,
or something like
like
that.
what
Mm.
Jefferson said, if the two types of, as he's calling it, the two races, even though there's only one,
race.
if the two races are to ever live together,
Mhm.
one must be superior and the other
And
must
the other
be
one must be inferior.
Yeah,
That's right.
and that's what they've done.
So let's turn to Thomas Jefferson. Let's talk about him first, and then talk about the Declaration of Independence, and then we'll talk about Washington, and we're done.
Woo!
Because probably those three names are the ones who are the most prominent.
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin,
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson,
Yeah,
and George Washington. So
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about those two now. Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and we'll put it to bed.
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson did not achieve greatness in his personal life. And I've added this is a John Chambersism because he's a junker.
You already know.
He had a slave as a mistress, Sally Hemings,
Mm-hmm.
and he fathered at least, and when they say at least, you know that means more.
Yeah.
At least 6 of her children.
That's the only ones he
declared.
Yeah.
Right. So that doesn't include even how many she might have had that died and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
4 survived to adulthood and are mentioned in the plantation records. And they were Beverly, Harriet, Madison, and Esther. Sally Hemings worked for 2.5 years in Paris as a domestic servant and maid in Jefferson's household. And while in Paris, she was freed. She negotiated with Jefferson to return to be a slave at his Monticello plantation, with extraordinary privileges for herself and for her unborn children. Decades later, Jefferson freed all of Sally Hemings' children. He lied about it and once tried to bribe a hostile reporter. So basically, that means that while she was the maid elsewhere, he was already troubling her anyway.
Yeah.
And she made her own negotiations on the basis of that. Now, that's nothing new because, in any case, you know, all female slaves, as it were, according to them, belonged to them to do what they wanted.
Yeah.
They were only scared of the male slaves impregnating their daughters or their wives or sisters and stuff.
Yeah.
And those women were also jumping on the male slaves right away. It wasn't that it didn't happen, but they were just then taking abortion medicine so that they didn't,
tea and all that stuff, what they took,
cotton root and stuff like that, which they would then drink to abort. And also slaves were doing it.
Yeah.
Female slaves, when they had been impregnated, they said, "Oh, now you know they knew in their mind he's done this to make money. He'll strip me of my child and sell it or keep it on the plantation as a worker. They will abort the child."
Yeah.
So it was a sad thing all round because they came to that conclusion: better I abort my child,
than for them to live and grow
for them to grow up as a slave. In other words, a slave to their own father.
Yeah, exactly. It's disgusting. And you can imagine the identity issues that those kind of slaves had, where their father was the master, but their mother was a slave. Is it Freddie? Yeah. Freddie's wrote a comment there.
Oh, please go on.
The following is a real life account of Subtle England. Oh, there we go. My wife Sharon and I were on the way to
Of all places. Yeah.
Buckingham Palace.
Garden party.
Around 10 years ago. So as you do, you can't travel to see Her Majesty in the standard ticket with first class outfits. So like any respectable husband would do, I made sure Sharon and I travel first class. So why is the first question from the ticket attendant, have you got the right carriage, sir? Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Is that the full of it?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, Freddie, I know exactly what you're saying.
You don't buy your ticket and don't know what it says on there.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that you put that, because I'll say this, in fact, this one wasn't even so subtle.
I think that's happened to every one of us.
But what happened to me was probably worse than that. I don't know if I'd call it subtle, but in a way, yes, it was, because it's along the same lines. I'm traveling first class. I mean, I don't often travel on the train anyway, because I just drive.
Granny with the music
And
came out your phone.
I checked my phone. So quite obviously your phone is the way it is so that you can hear what's going on. So I'm going through whatever I'm going through, and it's gone on to some music. So the music obviously starts playing immediately, you know, when you're scrolling through. So before I even got the chance to even touch the decreased volume button to take down the volume, a white lady jumps up, comes flying over, standing over me, turn that off now, as if she's speaking to a 5-year-old child. So I looked up at her and said, I said, what?
You already know.
And then because that even stopped me from doing what I was doing, because I'm wondering, why is this maniac standing over me?
Then you're like,
telling me, you know, I'm speaking to me like, turn that off now.
Then you've got
I'd be like looking
You know,
around,
so I'm
who
like,
I
what?
speak to?
You know, and then obviously while she then carried on, I don't want to be hearing that music. I don't want to be hearing anything like that now.
So don't lie, you was playing blues.
I don't even know what he was about. But you know, so I said to her, I said, can you shut up and go away? And she's like, I don't want to be hearing that music. And so I just said,
yeah, we have to just air them,
you know, and I just carried on doing what I was doing, because by then,
but guess what? You didn't either.
the volume had been switched down.
yeah.
So then she's still muttering, no, because she said, turn it down now or move to another carriage. I said to her, you move.
Right.
And then she turns to this white man. I said, oh, I'm going to have to move.
That's the worst thing about it.
You know, I can't stand it here. I can't stay here. Can you help me? Can you help me move my bag? So I just looked at both of them. And at the end of the day, I'm saying in my head, they have to know the grace of God is very sweet. Because had this been maybe 10 years, 15 years earlier, anyway,
but that's
praise the Lord.
I don't want to,
you know, that's all I'm saying is praise the Lord, right? But had it been a number of years earlier, they would have had a different response and a different kind of behavior.
Imagine if it was a bad day.
And her recruitment of Mr. Man to move her bags would have not helped her.
No, not in any way, shape, or form.
I just ignored them. And he said, oh, yes, of course, yes, sir. And he's there peeping at me. I'm staring straight at them as if to say, I dare you.
Yeah,
so he's picked her things, carried them. He's come back to sit in his seat and then just looked out the window the whole time. Very clever. But you see, this is the thing. And then we've gotten this idiot, Tony Sewell, to go and write this report.
Yeah.
That, you know,
and this is where it's coming from.
There's nothing going on in England. And
from that.
Yeah. Foundations.
Foundations matter.
That's why that lady thought that it was okay
Yeah,
for her
to
come
come out
and-
of her seat, you
Yeah,
know.
and come and stand over
and,
a
and,
man
and berate the
and
person.
speak and speak to me like
Because
that.
why speak to somebody that all you
No.
have to say is you could just come
In
back
fact,
and say, "Oh, sorry, excuse me."
You don't have to say
Could you
anything.
please
You could
turn
just
down?
wait. She could have just waited
Yeah,
a split second and seen that I would have turned it down because that's what I was trying to do. She actually stunned me by coming over
Yeah.
and
because she was
shouting
so
at me
fast.
like she's speaking to a child. Turn that down now
Because-
or
And
move
why?
to another
Because
carriage.
she was waiting
Yeah,
for
for
the
something to say to
opportunity
you.
to be able to say
Yeah,
something to you.
that's
To
what they
tell
do.
you to come out the carriage.
Yeah,
And she
them
didn't.
ones,
She
they do
didn't.
that.
She didn't want to see a black man in
Yeah,
in
in the
first
first
class.
Of course.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. So Thomas Jefferson. Now let's do a bit more on this guy.
The crusher.
Terrible man.
Yeah, he was really disgusting.
Like all slaveholders and many other white members of American society, Jefferson regarded Negroes as inferior, childlike, untrustworthy, and of course, property. Now, remember, this is a man who's made X amount of children with a Negro, but they are all these things according
The
to
same
him,
one.
right?
Yeah, every time going back.
He
Yeah,
said he could see no way for African Americans to live in society as free people. He embraced the worst forms of racism to justify slavery.
Yeah.
And yet he was busy making
Yeah.
babies
Yeah.
with one.
And not just
But
one.
really, if we're really honest about it, the reason why he was making babies with Sally Hemings was basically for money, for finance,
Yeah.
which I'm going to prove when I read some more about him. He had an estate called Monticello. Jefferson had slaves who were superb artisans, shoemakers, masons, carpenters, cooks. You know, so he had skilled people. But like every bigot, he never said anything about that,
Of course.
but just enjoyed the fruits of their labor.
All his new shoe, his dinners, and all this.
Oh, yeah.
business.
As Jefferson was counting up the agricultural profits and losses of his plantation in a letter to President Washington that year, it occurred to him that there was a phenomenon he had perceived but never actually measured. He proceeded to calculate it in a barely legible scribbled note in the middle of a page, enclosed in brackets. And this was he did a financial calculation on the slaves. And this is what he said. He set out clearly that making a 4% profit every year on the birth of black children. The enslaved were yielding him a bonanza, a perpetual human dividend at compound interest. Jefferson wrote, "I allow nothing for losses by death, but on the contrary shall presently take credit 4% per annum for their increase over and above, keeping up their own numbers." So in other words, that's why he was busy making babies. So you can rest assured that Sally Hemings is not the only one who made babies for him.
You already know.
His blood will be in many others. He says that this allowed his plantation to produce an inexhaustible human asset. The percentage was predictable.
Because they're never running out.
In other communications, Jefferson takes the 4% formula further and quite bluntly advances the notion that slavery presented an investment strategy for the future. And this is one of the founding fathers of the USA. Let me say this, because let's be under no illusion or disillusionment that the USA till this day, because this is where it was founded on the basis of greed and racism.
Yeah.
And until this day, it is based on greed and racism.
Yeah.
And even people of color, many of them are also greedy for money and they are also racist.
Yes.
Right? So let's put that in perspective. That if we're just going to point the finger, white people, blah 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 blah. Okay, fine. At the beginning, yes, it was them.
Now it's you.
But now it's you.
And that's the truth.
You know,
Majority of those white people that are like that, they're too scared now to even speak that way because they know what's going to come for them, or they're just not around anymore. But then there's people out there, black people, as they call themselves, who they could be a white person who's actually never done anything wrong.
Mm.
Ah, you
Yeah,
white person, you
Yeah,
white devil, and all them
all
things.
that is nonsense.
Why?
We need to stop that. So listen to this. Jefferson wrote to an acquaintance who had suffered financial reverses and said, "You should have invested in Negroes." He advised that if the friend's family had any cash left, every
Nice.
farthing of it should be laid out in land and Negroes, which besides a present support would bring a silent profit of between 5 to 10%. So you imagine this is what it's all about to him. And that's what slavery was based on. Because here's what I want to say that may inform some and educate others. Slavery, we know, the whole nefarious mindset of it and so forth. The evil of slavery as we know it, we understand it. But what we've got to base this on and understand very well is that apart from looking at the color prejudice issue and all of that, it was about greed for money.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what they were caring about.
And because they knew that this gave them a very, very lucrative financial option, get out.
I don't even know why he's trying.
Because this gave them a very lucrative financial option. This is why they were very happy to enslave people continuously.
Yeah.
Now, had it not been that slavery was lucrative, because these people had evil hearts, they would have found something else to what would I say, to satisfy that evil nature.
Yeah.
And that's why I always say to people that slavery was never just about color.
Yeah.
Right? And as we quite know, there were Arabs who took slaves, there were other Africans who enslaved each other and so on and so forth. It's never just been about color.
No.
And that's what they've tried to make it look like by majoring on it but it's to do with the evil content of the heart, which for me is an even deeper issue. So anyway, he drafted the Declaration of Independence. I'm only going to read a preamble. I'm going to read the first part of it. That's all, because this is total and absolute hypocrisy of the highest order. He spoke to Congress July the 4th, 1776, saying, "The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America," which, well, that's what they called themselves from there on. Yeah. "When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another." One people, he means them, the USA, as they were, and disconnect from the British. That's what he meant. All right, let's understand that. "Which the laws of nature and the nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind, requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." So those are the three things that they were denying the slaves: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And those are the same three things that they've put into their Declaration of Independence, telling the British, we are severing from you because of these three things. Just remember that. Hypocrisy of the highest order, and it's still there right until now.
Yeah.
So they go on and say that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. But according to them anyway, blacks were animals, they weren't men, so it didn't include them. Deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Slavery was not by consent. So look at all the hypocrisy of this document. It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, except if you're a slave. Now that's not written in there, but I'm saying it because that's the truth.
Because that's the truth.
Right? It's hypocrisy. That's why even until today, when I hear Americans talk about our constitution is this and who's our who? That constitution is the white man's constitution.
I know
The
I know.
Declaration of Independence is the white man's Declaration of Independence. People of color in the USA never had one.
Yeah.
And that's why all that's happened until now has been happening because they didn't have one.
Yeah.
It didn't include them. It didn't include them from the foundation, which is why later on it was so hard when they now said we must be included that they didn't want to. And until today, they're still fighting for that same level of inclusion.
Yeah.
And this is the foundation. And they are the greatest country in the world, greatest hypocrites, greatest liars.
Yeah.
That's what they are.
Greatest evil.
Yeah.
And the greatest evil.
Yeah, so they are number one.
Yeah.
For
Number
them
one.
reasons. Yeah. And of course that's why they would be number one. Because
And
of
then,
course,
and then they go on about the other things about what they think.
yeah.
So that's enough of that anyway. That's Jefferson. So Washington, and I'm done. Okay, so George Washington was the first president.
Yeah, that's we all know.
30th of April 1789 to the 4th of March 1797. Right? Before he fought against the British, George Washington fought for the British, serving as a commander in the French and Indian War. A prosperous Virginia farmer who owned hundreds of slaves. He came to resent the various taxes and restrictions being imposed on the colonies by the British Crown. So that's the reason why he became the first president. And in fact, they actually even wanted to make him king. They wanted to make the USA into a monarchy, and he refused. He said he doesn't want to be a king, so he said he'll just, and he's the one who instituted so that each president would only have 2 terms. And that's what he agreed on. He said, okay, let's have it so they have 2 terms and they finish. So that made it different in his mind. Of the 9 presidents who were slaveholders, only George Washington freed all his slaves. But when? On his deathbed.
Yeah. And even
listen
them,
to me.
not all of them.
You got to understand this because they try to, if you read some publications, they try to make George Washington look like a nice guy. Oh, actually, all of the other presidents who had slaves, they refused to free them. But George Washington freed his. No, he actually didn't. Because on his deathbed, those slaves had no more use to him.
Yeah.
Right? So if you wanted to look at it from another perspective, you just say it's just a bad mind. A bad mind. Because you could say he's trying to clear his conscience, you could say he's bad mind. Either way. Because if you're saying I'm passing on the legacy, and I believe that the legacy is good, why am I destroying it?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Because he said he didn't pass it on to his children and the next generation, not because he thought that slavery was bad or wrong, but because it had no use to him. So he didn't care. He's a narcissist. That's what he was. Because if he had cared that slavery was wrong and these people need their freedom and they need to be able to live the same way as me because they are equal to me, he will have freed them in his lifetime.
When he was fit and well.
When he was fit and well. But listen to the nonsense reason why he didn't free them. Because he didn't have enough money. He didn't have enough money to free them.
I have never heard such rubbish in my life. He didn't have enough money. No, what it means is he didn't have enough money for himself.
Yeah.
He didn't have enough money to spare.
Listen, at the time of the revolution, 1/5 of the colony's population lived in bondage, slavery. Although most slaves were in the South, slavery was a legal institution in each of the 13 colonies. New York's population was enslaved, for example, 14%, of the state of New York's population was enslaved, for example. And New York City had more slaves than any other city in the colonies except Charleston, South Carolina, South Carolina, Washington never spoke out publicly against slavery. Of course he wouldn't.
He don't want to lose his money.
By the time of his death in 1799, there were 317 slaves at his Mount Vernon estate. 124 owned by him, and the remainder managed by him as his own property, but belonging to other people.
Yeah, to his wife and stuff.
He considered, so they say, he privately considered plans to free them. Well, we don't know, and we don't believe it.
No, I don't believe it. So,
and his private anything doesn't mean jack.
no, it doesn't.
Right?
Put it out.
When a man is being whipped until he can't raise his hand to his shoulder. Yeah, look, till you can't do that because you've been whipped so much.
Yeah.
Till you can't raise your hands to your own shoulder. I don't care what his thoughts were privately.
No.
Because I don't believe it.
They've said land of the free in quotation marks.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Exactly that. Because these are the things that they sing.
Land of the free.
That's in their what do you call it? National anthem.
Yeah.
Land of the free and the brave.
And the
Brave
Home of the brave.
Listen,
Yeah.
and the home of the brave. They were not.
No.
Doing what they went there to do was not bravery,
No.
right? It was skullduggery. No bravery involved whatsoever.
No. Because even about my man here, why name Washington? Yeah. When I was reading, it said about how only one slave was let go immediately.
Who was that? The baby mom.
No, it wasn't the baby mom actually. Of course, if he was still alive and they said, "Oh, he let one slave go," it probably would have been a baby mom. But because he is already dead, then more time his wife ain't letting no woman who has had his children leave anyway. You know what those
women.
Yeah, those slave women, the like the slave masters' wives, they were awful.
They were worse.
Worse.
And the reason why they were worse, unfortunately for the slaves, it was like fueled with jealousy.
Yeah.
Because
they were envious of the slave
stupid men were going and sleeping with all the slaves.
And they're not
not interested in their own wives. And so the wives were envious of them. Very unfortunate, but that's the reality.
Yeah. So then they'd be there beating them out and doing horrible, nasty things to them. And I believe that's why none of them slaves were let go, even after it was written in his will and all this stuff. They weren't interested because his wife was probably like, I don't care what his will says. They're not going nowhere. They'll be working the land for me now. You know what I mean? Because you know what these people are like.
This is it.
And then apologists try to say he treated them well. How can you treat slaves well?
There's no such thing as treating a slave
there's
well.
not.
Because if they're a slave, they're a slave. So
exactly.
no
so therefore
thing.
the treatment is not well.
No.
And anyway, he still beat them. So regardless, when you're holding someone captive and beating them, there is no good treatment there.
No.
And it's as simple as that.
Well, even if you're not beating them and holding them captive,
there's no good treatment because you're doing something against their own will.
Yeah.
So that's
These founding fathers.
these are the so-called founding fathers of this USA.
The foundation of
the foundation of that country is built on
pure
wickedness,
nasty wickedness, evilness, disgusting, dirty behavior. Each person was secretly some decrepit idiot or had some serious issues.
Yeah.
Or they're either a decrepit idiot, demonic, Satan worshipping fool, or they were too scared to say anything, and so could only say it when they're nearly dead or in their will. Yeah, guilty and it's bad. Like the Queen. Oh, it's terrible. Slavery is bad. And then when she's seen diamonds, never mind about that. Get the diamonds. Yeah, there was too many of those people.
That's right.
That were just compliant and complicit because they were enjoying the goods, and because they couldn't see anybody in their face. Of course, they don't care.
More like the fathers of murderers and thieves.
Exactly. Exactly that.
Yep.
Yeah, the fathers of murderers.
That's
Definitely.
right.
Yeah, and that's why now look at the government and who is in the government, because people don't realize, like I said about Benjamin Franklin and the bloodline thing.
Mhm.
I'm not joking when I say it's all bloodlines,
Yeah.
and they all connect to each
Nothing
other.
is coincidence.
Nothing is coincidence. None. Even celebrities who are on TV and they're doing their music and their dancing videos and all, they're connected, and their family of them
Connected, mate.
them people too.
The
That's
ones
right.
that they're pushing.
Well, because you see,
with information.
I was looking
Let's
at
listen to them.
something the other day,
Mhm.
and they were talking about bloodlines. And so, and of course, we did speak already a bit about the fact that we who are Caribbean descendants or Caribbean born Jamaicans and so forth, and particularly, especially Jamaicans, and I don't know, because I don't know how much people know about other Caribbean islands. But if you do kind of look into it, you'll find that Jamaicans have a lot more in common. Many Jamaicans, anyway, have much more in common with Cubans, those from Dominican Republic, and that's because there's many of them who are from the original batch, which was not from Africa.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not getting into that
Again.
right now, because that's long.
Yeah.
And we have spoken about some of it before, and if you don't know, then you don't know. But my point is that when they were looking at, people groups and DNA and so forth, because when you go and do these DNA tests now, they like to give every person who has a bit of coloration in their skin, they try to put something there about sub-Saharan Africa, which is a lie. So they were now talking and saying, well, listen, you see the reason why you've got like a whole gamut of different colors of people in America who are all people of color. And like they spoke about places like New Orleans, where at one point in time people of color were separated from those who were darker. And it's all these kind of things that went on that have built up this issue of colorism. You see, and this is all part of the foundation of the USA. Hence the reason why you've got that nonsense still going on. Because Americans call themselves African Americans. But they don't want anything to do with Africans.
They don't identify with Africa.
So there's no point in, they should just, and they don't realize that when they're called, they feel, many so-called African Americans feel that they are doing themselves a justice by calling themselves African American, where they're actually doing themselves a disservice, because what you're doing is labeling yourself as a slave descendant. Because if you speak to an American of color, or politically termed Black American, they don't even have any affinity or affiliation with Jamaicans, let alone with Africans. If you speak to many Jamaicans, they don't have any affinity with Africans. They have more affinity with the so-called Americans. And this is where the problem is. Tell me what you're saying.
I heard in America now, when you fill out a form, they are asking what black complexion are you? Are you light black or brown?
Oh, yes, I can believe it. I can believe it, because this is what I'm saying. That because over there they have the obsession of it. Because it's in. You see, this is what the article I was reading was talking about, the fact that in so many of these ones who are so light in color, they know that they've got so much of the white man's blood in them, so they begin to feel this, because that's what came from the foundation. This is why when we're talking about people like Jefferson and these these others who fathered children, and then what they did, they would father a child, and then and if they lived long enough, they would make sure, or in any case, even if they knew they weren't going to live, but they would have infiltrated the mind of that child You are better than them because you are got more of the owner's blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would then take that child and make sure that that child married a white.
Yeah.
So the offspring of that one would be even whiter still. And they would keep them as a separate group than everybody else. So they didn't mix them with the darker. So they couldn't suddenly see, oh, my child will fall in love with a darker person, because they wouldn't allow them even to see them.
No.
Yeah.
They kept them separate,
In the house.
right?
And you
So
must
that-
stay in the house.
So that they would
as
then
well.
they would then now have lighter and lighter children,
Mhm.
or even their own daughter, which they knew it was their own daughter. They'd give her to a white man
Yeah.
to make a baby because they know that baby's going to be lighter in color.
Yeah.
And then that baby, boom, is given to somebody else,
Yeah.
another white man, because they're going to be lighter still.
Yeah.
You see, and this is how they were doing it, and so it's left something in the spirit of those people. This is what I'm saying, that they think, oh, we call ourselves African American. No, you're an idiot, because you don't have
You
an
don't even
affinity
know
with
who you
Africa,
are.
right? If you're in America and you were born in America and your granny was born in America and your mum was born in America and your great granny was born in America, you're an American.
Yeah.
There's
why-
nothing
why is
African
it
about it.
African?
There's nothing African about it. They're putting
You
that
might be
there
from
to
Africa,
remind you
Yeah.
of slavery.
Yeah.
but you're not.
Right?
You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Same as when they tell Caribbean, oh, you are an African Caribbean. No, I'm
No,
not.
no.
Because what even
No, I'm
is
not.
that?
There's
No, I'm not.
There's no.
There's no
I am a
such
Jamaican.
Because the thing
African
is, how
Caribbean
would you say
nothing.
African
Because
No,
even-
because it's two
hold on,
different things.
hold on, slow down. Even before the British came to Jamaica, Jamaica was Spanish.
Yeah.
And before the Spanish came to Jamaica, Jamaica was already Jamaica.
Mhm.
So stop it.
No offense, but I'm keeping my bloodline chocolate all the way through.
Yeah, man, what do you mean?
Like-
Nappy.
Oh. Well, I am taking offense.
Why?
Because then where would people like me be born?
But that's his choice.
I suppose.
And you also didn't choose to be born how you were born. It just happened that way. So shut up.
No, didn't choose it, but
That's right, because that's your mum, isn't it? It's not, you know what I mean? I didn't choose for your mum to be the colour she was neither. So stop the noise. Me personally, I know what you're saying, and you know, because the thing is that they thought in doing that they're going to wash out and put themselves everywhere, and that's, what they've tried to do, and it hasn't worked.
but they're even trying to
But
do
the,
it now
but,
in a
the,
different
but the
way.
way how it has worked, and this is the sad thing, which is hence the reason why we talk the things that we do. Dad, Dad said shut up, so you just listen.
I'm still not agreeing with you.
You know, the sad thing about it is that their intention to mess with the minds of people has worked.
It's
Yes.
work.
Yeah.
It's work.
It has worked, because
And
that's
it's
the
very
reason why
sad.
they feel that,
Yeah,
you know,
it's very
they
sad.
segregate and separate themselves. Oh, we are this, we are that,
Yeah.
blah blah blah.
But that's why you get stupid people that make them stupid comments like, "Oh yeah, because you know them blick people, you know
Yeah.
what they're like,"
It's the
and
same
then
as someone
and
saying,
I
"Oh,
tell
yeah,
them
everyone likes me, girls
every
think they're
time,
too nice."
right?
Yeah,
then,
yeah, all
blah,
that.
blah, blah.
You
I
think
tell
you're nice
people
because your
every
hair is
single
different
time,
and blah blah blah.
every single time.
Oh,
Oh,
yes,
you don't understand the struggle of the hair
Mm.
because your hair is not the same as theirs. When in
No,
reality, if they understood, they would know that somebody with hair like mine,
it's harder.
it's harder to,
But also-
to sort it.
Hair is hair, and lazy is lazy.
Right then.
And the reason why your hair is looking like a
Cut
bird's
up and
nest
mash up
is
and
because you're lazy.
twist up and mash up.
As simple
That's
as
your
that,
own
because-
problem.
Because even Rastaman with dreadlocks,
Mm-hmm.
some of them,
They look
the locks look
beautiful.
nice.
Yeah.
They're clean.
Mhm.
They're put together properly. They wash them nicely. They're
Mhm.
well kept. You look at somebody else, he looks like he's been dragged backwards through
Through
cow,
bush.
through cow doo doo. Right? Simple as that.
Yeah.
And that's the truth.
Yeah.
I used to work for a dread, and his hair was past his knee,
Mhm.
right? And I said to him, I don't mean he used to mostly wear it under a hat anyway,
Yeah.
but once in a while he would let it loose.
Mhm.
But he said, first of all, the reason why he didn't let it loose much because he don't want nobody to touch them. Because he will have to chop their hands, right? Because it's not happening.
Mm.
They can't touch his hair, so he would chop them up. So he has to put it in the hat.
Mm-hmm.
But then he said to me, he said he was very, extra particular. And he said he said he'll take like 2 hours to wash it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he said, me, I have to wash every one of them separate. Right? And then put baby oil on it and something, I don't know, coconut, something he was telling me, I can't remember what, and oil up his locks.
Yeah.
And the man's hair was good.
Yeah.
Right? And it had to be good if it could reach below his knees. Right? But now you see some man and woman,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be scared.
Yeah.
You just have to be scared. And black people's hair, but lazy people's hair, that is. Just term it the way that it really is.
Because that's
it's the very same thing when
you
see men and they give you a handshake and all inside
Crunch
here
up.
is all crusty. All around here you will see whites. Screw it up. No, you can put a little cream on your hand and it's laziness.
But those are the
It's
lies.
got all this about it's because you feel like if I had a white man's color, then
No,
listen,
they want you to think that. That's all programming.
it's all, of course it is. And listen, I have heard.
Listen, I've seen some.
Listen, let me just put it how it is because there's no point in it. I have heard white, pure proper, as you would call them, white, pink skinned women, blonde, right? When I hear her foot,
Hey,
right,
you already know.
All you can hear is
Yes.
like sandpaper.
Yep, and
Right?
these are the same people who comment but are getting injections to have a big batty and big lips. But let me not go there today.
Exactly.
What do you mean?
Exactly.
What?
And these are the same.
But this is what I'm talking about. This white woman who I'm talking
Injected
about,
it.
she's not putting no grease on her skin. She's not creaming her foot or nothing. And all you can hear, right, when she rubs her foot against the sheet, all you can hear,
Yes.
screw it, right? Because her
They're
foot is
pulling
like,
out the fibers of the
right?
sheet.
Her foot is like sandpaper.
Listen.
You see them all their heel back is all
Crack up.
right?
And some of them dents are deep.
So you think that the
Like
color
someone chopped into
the
their
color
heel back.
issue is going to make something better? In what way?
But the thing is, right, what I always
Brainwashing.
say to my friend,
Brainwashing.
don't cream, right? Yeah, and I've said this to my friend as well who doesn't cream. I said, look at the adverts for lotion and skin cream. What color are the people on the adverts?
Yeah.
They're white. And why? Because they know they don't have to tell us. It's you lot that they have to tell.
That's right.
We already know.
Yeah.
Majority of us
The only ones who don't know are the brainwashed ones
Yes.
who came from families where they tried to make them to be white when they're not.
Yes.
And
it's a simple
and that's the thing. I went to school with a guy who grew up in a white family. Both the mother and the father were white. When he reached school where we were, the first thing I told him, I think the first day I met him, I said, "You're letting the side down." He's like, "What do you mean?" And there was very, very few of us in that school who were of our color. And when I say very few, I mean really seriously few. I said to him, "You can't look like that,
I mean, looking daft.
because you don't look right. Your skin is dry." What's she saying?
I can't even see it. It's not coming up on my.
Oh, try and read it from there.
Oh, it's there.
Oh, okay, go on.
Had one told me when they are showering they don't wash the legs because
listen,
this became a big.
It was
thing,
on the
wasn't it?
radio.
Because what?
It was on the
Because the
radio
water
because the water runs.
runs
Kind
down.
of
What kind of nastiness is that?
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
What?
And there are some people that never actually like wash their feet because they believe
they're standing in the water. Yeah. Nah, I'm bad.
Which people?
The non-melanated ones.
Yeah, the non-melanated. Because I didn't see, and I'm not even saying this to be racist, but I didn't see any melanated people
saying them
agreeing.
things. No,
They
of
were
course
actually
you
saying,
wouldn't.
"Oh, this is nastiness."
It's nastiness.
But I think you'll find some American ones that would agree with them.
Yeah, you would.
Because this is the whole point of why I'm saying what I'm saying. That
Yeah.
If you're not
these
washing
people,
your
their
legs,
minds,
then you're not
you know.
washing between them.
Well, clearly not.
Because the water just runs down. Isn't that what they're saying?
Can we come off that?
I cannot.
Let me finish my story about this brother. So we're in school and we told him, yo, my friend, your hair, everything, just put cream on your skin. What do you mean? Have your parents never told? He's come from a white people. His parents were white.
Is he adopted?
So
Yeah.
because he, you know, in my school days, I was, you know, I didn't take no prisoners. So I brought a comb to school,
Yeah, cool.
right? Because he's not listening to me. So I brought the comb to school and I caught him, right? And I showed him what I meant. Because I dragged it through his hair and it weren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
So then he understood because I made sure that he felt it. And I'm like, this is like you've never combed your hair in your life.
Yeah.
You just wash it and go. Like you're a white person.
Yeah.
Right?
Your
That's
hair
what
needs
they
more
would do.
care.
So
that.
he began for a little while to grease his hair and comb it out. But because he was lazy, because it's what I'm getting at. Laziness is part of the problem as well.
Yeah.
And the mind is brainwashed already.
Yeah.
Then he decided he's going to twist it up and, you know. And he found it hard to just put grease cream on his skin. And you see, it's all these type of things. I mean, okay, this is now gone slightly out of our topic, but it's just the point, you know, and these girls, they'll know it too. When we've gone to school and there's like mostly all white people and then coconuts like this guy, they just jump in the shower after games, PE, swimming, whatever sports, book and put on their clothes. I can't do that because otherwise, especially swimming,
Yeah. Well,
There's no
glory is
way.
you're
that.
going to walk around with all whites
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Because
Everywhere.
even your eyes here,
you know, and you're all
mouth,
scraped
everywhere
up.
is going to be white.
So I've had to bring my cocoa butter. And when I've finished, I've got to take, you know, even 5 minutes or whatsoever longer than the rest because I need to cream up myself,
Yeah.
including my face,
Yes.
my ears and everywhere because everywhere is white.
Yeah.
You know, scrapey,
And then it
scrapey.
becomes
Yeah.
itchy.
You see?
Yeah.
But then,
Because the
and then
Hurry
clothes-
you're being
taking
you're being
too
screamed at by
long.
the
Oh, yeah.
teachers and threatened you'll
All
get
the time.
detention and
Yeah.
you'll get this. And
all
I
the
tell
time.
don't care.
And I remember this one
Yeah.
girl, and
Yeah.
she never wanted to cream herself.
Oh yeah,
that's what
yeah.
they said.
That was
People
it.
taking too
Yeah,
long for
yeah,
me.
yeah.
I told you,
Let them leave you.
They said, leave, yeah, no problem. You just go home.
Yeah.
I told them straight when they've told me that. And I was quite young. They said, "I will leave you." I said, "I will go home.
Yeah.
I know my way home.
Mhm.
I will go home." And all of a sudden, then the coach is not
Right.
going.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they can
because
wait,
yeah,
yeah,
because it
yeah.
was a bus of mine,
Yeah.
and that's what they said.
They're threatening.
Oh,
So
we'll leave you.
I'll go home. I know my way home.
And then they'd be there trying to speak to me afterwards about, oh, what's wrong? And I just used to be,
Because what do you mean? What's
I
wrong?
didn't even speak. Because why are you there harassing me? And
people.
yeah, and trying to what's the word? Threaten me.
Threaten.
Yeah, to stop creaming my skin.
Exactly.
Because you
Don't wanna
personally don't feel that it's important.
And that's,
Yeah,
what-
and that's what the problem
and
is.
this is why I say that
Majority
unfortunately,
of them encounters, that's the
see,
problem.
in America, you've got two types of people, and this is the
Oh,
reason why
yeah.
you've got those who have become real, you know, hardcore and militant,
Mm.
Yeah.
and they said, "Listen, we're not taking
Yeah,
anything."
What do I call it? Black excellence.
You know?
people.
Yeah, that's right. They're not taking anything in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And you can understand why, because this is what I'm saying about the foundations. The foundation of the USA have made it what it is.
Mhm.
You've got a certain set of people like
You've
that.
got to be.
But then
like
you've
that.
also got the brainwashed ones.
Yeah.
Because
I agree
I
with them.
remember being in America, and obviously I speak with a you know, pretty good English accent. So when I've gone to certain places and I speak to people, and they're looking at me, oh, where are you
You
from?
British.
So that's the first thing. Oh, okay. And then I never tell them that I'm British. I tell them I'm Jamaican.
Yeah.
But you don't sound like those island people. And I look at them, I think, and there's the first issue.
Yeah.
What do they mean by those island people?
Yeah.
Because
I
if
don't
they're
even
talking,
understand
they're
that.
talking about the Caribbean. There's lots of islands in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Jamaica is one of.
Yeah.
Jamaica is the largest English-speaking
Caribbean island. Yeah.
But there are other islands where they sound different,
Different.
Mhm.
and they're still speaking English, but
Yeah.
they don't sound like Jamaican.
Yeah.
So what are you
Exactly.
But
doing?
that's the thing.
But
They
it's all
don't
this
even know the
brainwash.
difference.
And then,
Yeah.
then when they get some of them, when I got into deeper conversation, I'm thinking, God help them, they're idiot.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you know, I like the island food and the island
Yeah,
vibe.
which one?
Which island?
And that's what they call
You
because
see,
some people
because
say
they can't,
island, because they don't
can't
know.
see. They can't
They
see
don't know.
and say to themselves, "Oh, me and you will look the same." No,
Yeah, no.
we are. They split us.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm an American and you're island. Some island.
People.
Some island.
Island.
See,
Yeah.
this is what I'm saying. And it is the USA that did all that.
Mhm.
There's a lot. I mean, we've said a lot about what we've said, and there's much more
Yeah.
that could be said. You know, because when you look at certain places and you see why they are the way they are, when I've read a little deeper, I understand. Like I was looking at stuff about Florida, you know, and why I know there's more people of color in Florida.
Mhm.
And of course, because Florida at one time was Spanish.
Yeah.
When the British came in and you know said now the USA belongs to them, Florida didn't.
Yeah.
It belonged to the Spanish.
Yeah.
And escaped slaves were going to Florida and they were freeing them.
Yeah.
The Spanish were freeing them deliberately.
Yep.
Not that the Spanish were any better, but they were doing it on purpose,
Mhm.
you know, so that they could use them to rebel against the British.
Yeah.
So you see, they ended up with more. And then, of course, there was then a mixture of then with the Spanish. And so you see, nothing is coincidence.
No.
If you look at it, you can understand why things have gone the way that they did.
Yeah.
Same with New Orleans, the French,
Yeah.
and the French were freeing the slaves
Yeah.
to rebel against the British.
Yeah.
You see,
Witchcraft.
and that's why if we now start, if we start to talk, which maybe that's where we can go and talk about the legacy of evil that the British have deposited around this world, it's heavy.
Yeah, it is.
In
Because
fact,
that's what we're only talking about the USA.
in
Yeah,
fact,
exactly.
let's go there.
Yeah. That's
That's
next
the
week.
next
Yeah.
Next week we'll
Yeah.
go there because I'm done now.
Yeah.
You know,
No.
next week let's go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the legacy of evil of the British
I
Empire.
don't even want to do them notes.
Oh yeah, and that's going to take more than 1 week.
Of course.
Right?
It
That
has
one,
to
that one will be at least two or three.
2 or 3, yeah.
But let's go there. Let's talk about the legacy of evil of the British Empire,
Yeah.
because a lot of this has come straight. Because remember, even the USA began off as a British
Colony.
right? And that's because they don't leave. I mean, the Spanish, of course, and the Portuguese began this transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah, because they were
The British
enjoying it
went
too
to
much.
fight to them because they knew that America was a lucrative place to have.
Yeah. And they
So
needed it.
the Spanish kept Florida.
Mm.
You see, and now even some places which today are USA, they were Mexico.
Yeah.
Parts of California,
Yep.
Texas,
You already know Texas.
they were
How you
Mexico.
gonna tell me Texas is white man
Hold on a
country?
minute.
They were
What's
Mexico.
Tex-Mex? Where'd that come from?
But how you gonna tell me Texas, right? A place that is hot, hot like that, and you're telling me, and that's where they say, oh yeah, you know them country white. No, those people
No.
that are there and are white are descendants of the slave owners. Simple as that. And that's why they're all rich.
The
Yeah.
foundations of California was the Jews.
Yeah.
The original
The
Jews.
original one.
The ones of color who came
Yeah.
from the Iberian Peninsula. Because why do you think there's so many Spanish-speaking people in California?
Yeah.
They're the ones. Them mixed with African slaves, they founded California.
Yeah.
Anyway, too much
Yeah, man.
information overload.
That's it.
We've given a lot of information today.
So God bless you, everyone. Thanks for those
Tuning in.
who stayed with us to the end.
Yeah.
So next week we are beginning a topic which is going to take us a couple of weeks, I think.
Mhm.
The legacy of evil of the British Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go there. Because it's very topical right now, because Tony Sewell, Rotten Coconut Tony Sewell, said that there is not any evidence. That's what he said. There's no
He
evidence
said some
of
crap out of his
institutional
backside.
racism. Now, here's the thing that I want to say, and I'll repeat this next week anyway. take out the word institutional if you like,
Mm,
right? We don't really mind because yeah, you can play with words and say it's not institutional racism.
Okay.
Color
But-
prejudice
Oh,
exists
Isn't
in
it?
the UK. Racial prejudice exists
Exists,
in the UK.
very much.
If you
so.
want to say, well, it actually, if you go by correct wording definition, institutional racism, no, I don't care.
I'm not interested.
But I could show you institutions where it
Mhm.
is, where they are racist,
Yeah.
from top to
To the
bottom.
bottom,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can show you.
Uh-huh.
I can show you.
Many.
Right? So you know,
Well,
anyway. We're going to talk more about it next time. So
Yeah.
just allow it. Leave it right there.
But
But
get ready.
it's
people.
gonna be the heaviest one ever.
Yeah, definitely. Because we've only kind of touched on them kind of
You know,
things.
but when we start first, we will define what was the British Empire, and it's not difficult to do because you can just work backwards from what they've got left,
Yeah.
the so-called Commonwealth. Because
Mhm.
even think about the
Yeah,
wording.
Commonwealth.
The wording tells you everything.
Yeah.
Commonwealth, common to whom,
Right there.
and who is the wealth going to?
Mhm.
Because you got to understand, use your brain and see what it's Commonwealth because they're the countries that are left, they're yamming them out.
Yeah.
Sorry for anybody who doesn't understand what I mean by that. You know, that's what they're doing. They're yamming them out,
Yeah.
right? Commonwealth.
Taking everything.
You see? Let's talk about what they've done in Africa. Let's talk about what they've done in India.
Great talk, guys. Have a blessed evening.
I'm telling you. God bless.
God bless
Bye bye.
everyone.
I couldn't even find an